Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this pronunciation masterclass. For those of you who are students on my pronunciation course, this will just be part of your normal shadowing experience. And for those of you who are on my A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, C2 courses, then you will use this as an addition to your courses to help you with your pronunciation. You can find additional resources that go alongside this lesson within the common room area of the ELAN community. You can download notes and use the audio there. Okay, so let's have a look at our exercise for today. So here is what we're going to be looking at. This is a short passage that I've taken, and I'm going to break this passage down. So initially, I just want you to listen, and I'm talking about active listening here. There's a huge difference between passive listening, just taking in the content, and actually listening to the sounds. So active listening is where you're really tuning in to the sound and the melody of my voice. So initially, I just want you to listen, and then we will break down each sentence within the extract, and then I will explain as we go through all the different little nuances, and then you'll have a chance to practice. Okay? Let me bring this back on screen here for you so you can read along as I read. Here we go. So this is what I'm covering. There seems to be a record-breaking feat for just about everything these days. Who knew there was a world record for making the tallest stack of M&Ms? Well, there is, and the record has been broken. British civil engineer Will Cutbill, 23, attempted the balance-defying challenge while trying to stave off the boredom of being cooped up during a COVID lockdown. He used all his architectural and design skills with a dose of physics know-how to stack a pile of the multicolored button-shaped chocolates 5 M&Ms high. Many people might think that is a beatable record, but Mr. Cutbill challenged anybody to try and better his balancing accomplishment. Lovely. Nice and easy. Okay, so what I've done here is break it down sentence by sentence. I've given you a little key to make you understand what it is I've noted and what we're going to cover. So the following markings that help you to identify weak forms. So when you see something in blue and italic, that means it's a weak form. If you're on my pronunciation course, there is a section all about weak forms, but in just a quick overview, weak forms, there are a number of words within the English language that are commonly used words that have two forms, a strong form and a weak form. An example of this is the word of. So like a cup of tea or a glass of water. Now, often when we speak fluidly, when we're talking in sentences, some of these words, they change to a weak form to make the flow easier. And of is one of them. So I wouldn't say a cup of water, I'd say a cup of water. Of is the weak form of the word of. Of, a cup of water, a cup of water. And when we use these weak forms, it doesn't sound bad, it sounds very natural. And these weak forms are used in all sorts of different accents. So this is universal. Whether you're doing a regional accent or another country version, so Australian English, American English, weak forms are kind of universal. So they're good to know. So a cup of tea, a glass of water. And so blue and italic will show you what should be in its weak form. And this is what you'll see in dictionaries as well. If you look at a word in a dictionary and it has 2 examples of pronunciation, often that's because there's a weak form variation. So one will be the weak form, one will be the strong form. If you see an apostrophe where there wasn't an apostrophe in the main extract, then that apostrophe will signify a dropped letter. Okay. Often we will drop plosives like T's at the ends of words, not always. And this is where it's a bit tricky for non-natives picking up the correct pronunciation, as in we don't always drop those final plosives, but sometimes. So that's what I've noted here. And if you see something in bold, then that's where I suggest you would put the emphasis. Obviously, everyone will speak slightly different. So you might have another native come in and deliver these lines in a completely different way. This is just my suggestion of what I would emphasize within each sentence, just to help to give you a natural flow. And I've also added quite a few commas within these sentences. And this is purely to show you where I would naturally break up these sentences. Again, to give you this feeling of rise and fall, these moments of break, in order to help the sense so that the listener can really understand. And it helps you, I think, as well, to understand the meaning of the sentences. So hopefully that's clear. Let's move through and look at the very first sentence and how I've broken this down. So firstly, it says, there seems to be, and we've got a comma straight away there. Now here I've put an apostrophe, I've taken the O away, because rather than saying to be, we've got a weaker form. We almost completely get rid of that O sound and not sound, letter O, and we join the T to the B. So it becomes to be, to be. There seems to be. There seems to be, and then a natural break. There seems to be. And then we have a weak form of the A, There seems to be a. There seems to be a, because this is an important word. So we just do it nice and gentle. Nice and weak. There seems to be a record-breaking feat. Now, I've taken the D away from record because here you have a D ending a word and then a B starting the next word. That's two plosives together, d-b, record-breaking, which is quite a mouthful. Two plosives together, you'll always see one omitted, or pretty much always see one omitted. So to sound more natural, we take that D away. Record breaking. Now, one thing to be aware of when we're removing a plosive sound is to still go towards that sound. What do I mean? When we make a D, let's just make a D for me now. D, d, d. You should feel the tip of the tongue. Let me show you a little closer, my face. Hello. The D is the tip of the tongue up on the roof of the mouth, just behind the teeth. This is called the alveolar ridge. There. D. We make pressure and we release. D. Record. D. D. When we're going to omit a plosive, always go towards that position. So go to put your tongue up there. Record. But we just then don't release it. Record. And then we're going to put the lips together, record breaking. So you see, I'm going as if I'm going to say that sound, and then I just don't release it. Instead, I release a different plosive. Record. It sounds different to record. So we don't want record breaking. We want record breaking. Can you see? It's almost a glottal. Record breaking. Okay. So try that little trick. So we have, there seems to be a record breaking feat. Now I've highlighted feat in bold. I've made this a word that we should sit on. A record breaking feat. And then I have a comma, pause, a record breaking feat. For just about everything. I've also put everything in bold here. Again, I want to land the weight on that. A record-breaking feat for just about everything. And you'll notice here in 4, I've made this a weak form, f, rather than 4, which you could do it strong if you wanted to. But when you read the full sentence, it reads much more naturally if you make it a weak form. F. For just about. Now this becomes one word almost. So the is a schwa sound. So this is like a weaker sound. Just about, just about, just about, just about, just about. So make that one nice flowing sound. For just about everything. And then we have a comma. These days. So just a little tag on at the end. These days. Right, let's try that whole sentence. There seems to be a record-breaking feat for just about everything these days. How was that for you? Was that good? Let's try again. There seems to be a record-breaking feat for just about everything these days. One thing I would say is that you don't have to do this fast. Many of us speed through when we're speaking. It's like we don't want to speak and we want to finish as quickly as possible. But it's better on all accounts if you slow down. It's better for you because you have time to think and get your mouth around each sound and be articulate. It's better for your listener as well, who has more time to absorb what you're saying and truly understand the meaning. So slow down. Don't feel the need to be fast. There seems to be a record-breaking feat for just about everything these days. Let's move on. The next sentence. I've got the first section bold. Who knew? Now, this is a question, this sentence. And usually in terms of intonation, we say that a question will have a rising intonation at the end. Sometimes with rhetorical questions, the rising intonation is more at the beginning with a falling intonation for the rest of the statement. This, a rhetorical question, in case you're not sure, or you haven't heard that before, a rhetorical question is a question that doesn't require an answer. Okay, so it's more of a statement, really. Who knew? So I've got this rising intonation at the beginning. Who knew, comma, there was a world record. Now here I did say D there because there's no following plosive. So do pronounce that D. Who knew there was a world record? Oh, here. Oh, I didn't put that in. This one here is weak. Was. There was. There was a world record. Okay. For making. So this is weak and we're ignoring the R, which I should have done there actually. Let me do that there. For just about and for making. For making the tallest stack. Now, tallest has an ST at the end and stack begins with an ST. So you've got double ST, which is doable, tallest stack. For those of you who are quite far along in my pronunciation course, you'll recognize that combination from some of the articulation exercises. So it is possible to articulate ST, but in natural flowing speech, it's not necessary. So we would just remove one of them and put those two words together. Tallest stack, tallest stack. Okay, I hope this is helpful for you guys. For making the tallest stack, and I've highlighted that as well as a word to sit on, of, a weak form of M&Ms. Oh, and if you're not sure what M&Ms are, they are little chocolates. It's a soft chocolate inside with a crispy chocolate shell around the outside. Making me hungry. Okay, so let's have that sentence in its entirety. Who knew there was a world record for making the tallest stack of M&Ms? Okay, let's move on to the next line. Well, comma, there is, comma. Now you'll see here, and I haven't talked about this, I've put this in brackets, this R in brackets, and that's because it's a linking R. So sometimes we have little linking sounds to help the flow. And here is one of them. There is. Can you hear that? Rather than there is, there is, there is. There is. It's just a vibrating sound that brings them together. There is. There is. And, comma, and the record has been broken. Why have I put this in bold? Anyone? The reason I have highlighted the beginning of record in this particular passage is because there are two different pronunciations for record. It depends whether you are talking about a noun or a verb. The noun has the stress at the beginning, record, and the verb record has the stress on the second syllable. Record. So if I'm going to record my voice, I put the stress on the second part of the word. Therefore, you know I mean the verb, which should also be clear from the context. But if it's a noun, a physical thing, if you're listening to my recording, then that record has the stress at the beginning. Okay? So the record, because this is a world record, the record has been broken. You'll see I have highlighted all three of these. Now you could argue that we don't need to stress all three, but I like to slow this down because this is the important part. Okay, this is the record that previously existed now has been broken. That's exciting. So I would stress all of those. Let's do that whole sentence. Well, there is, and the record has been broken. How is that? Good? Okay. So the next sentence is quite a long one. Let's break this one down. British. Oh, frog in my throat. A frog in your throat is a British idiom. Obviously, I don't actually have a frog in my throat. It just means that you've got a croak. You sound like that. That's a frog in your throat. I'll have some water. Okay. Now that's clear. Let's try this. British civil engineer Will Cutbill, 23, attempted the balance-defying challenge while trying to stave off the boredom of being cooped up during a COVID lockdown. Okay, so what have I done here? I did actually stress all of this first part, but I've only really highlighted the name. It's really important when we are talking about when we're reciting names or names of companies or names of people, because this is unusual information that people won't normally hear. So if you're giving someone's name or an address or a name of a place, then you have to be very clear. So always stress those things. Okay, so Will Cutbill. And that's quite an unusual surname. I've never come across that surname before. And I want to say Cuthbert is a surname I am familiar with, but this is different. So that's even more reason for me to really emphasize the difference, that this is an unusual name, Cutbill. Now, I have actually been dropping the T. I don't know if that's how Will would want his name to be pronounced, but because we've got a T and a B, Cutbill, the T would automatically become more glottal. We drop it, Cutbill. Okay, so Will Cutbill. All right, let's go back and have a look. British civil engineer Will Cutbill, 23. Just be careful when you're saying 3 with the TH. I'm always helping students with the TH sound. It's difficult for many. The TH in standard British English, the modern RP English, is tongue between the T. And that's for voiced or unvoiced, or v. It's quite tricky because some people, if you're not used to making this particular sound, some people feel really like it's very unusual and natural to stick the tongue out between the teeth. It's in the way. They want to keep it back, but it really does make a difference. So do try to get that tongue between the teeth. Okay, so 23. All right. Okay, British civil engineer Will Cuthbert, 23, attempted the balance-defying challenge. Now, I have highlighted this one. Balance-defying challenge, comma, while trying to stave off. So this is a phrasal verb, to stave off. And rather than, because to would be weak form, we've actually just added the T on to stave off. So to stave off the boredom. While trying to stave off the boredom, comma, of weak form being cooped up. Now, this ends with an ED, but it sounds like a T. Okay? Sometimes our ED endings do sound like T's. I can't cover all the ins and outs of that today. I'm sure there is a section within the pronunciation course that does, but there are lots of different rules as to how to pronounce the ED endings. But this one is a T, cooped up. So you add it onto the up and it becomes tup, cooped up. During a weak form, a COVID lockdown. And you'll notice I've taken away the K because I don't want you to do lock down. It would break up the flow. So we do lockdown, COVID lockdown. All right, let's do the whole sentence nice and slowly. British civil engineer Will Cuthbert, 23, attempted the balance-defying challenge while trying to stave off the boredom of being cooped up during a COVID lockdown. Good. I hope you're enjoying this so far. Guys, if you are a student of mine, then I hope that you are in the messaging space within the ELAN community where you can speak to me now. Just having a quick look to see what your messages are. Fantastic. Letty's there to help you as well. Letty's one of my assistants. She's a fantastic English teacher, so she's there to help you with any questions if I can't. Okay, brilliant. All right, let's move on. We've got 2 more phrases to go. We're running perfectly to time. It's wonderful. So the next phrase, another long phrase. He used all. So I've put this together. He used all. And that D really will be dropped on a little heavier. Used all. Joining to the all. Dull. Used all. Used all his architectural and, now here, when I say it slowly, I do the strong form and, but in flowing speech, this would become weak form. And we drop the D because we have a D here straight after it. So it become architectural and design skills. He used all his architectural and design skills. So really put the weight onto these 2 words and that will help the flow. Let's try that again. He used all his architectural and design skills. He used all his architectural and design skills, comma, with a dose of physics know-how. So here I've highlighted dose. I naturally sit on this word, so I highlighted it. With a dose of physics know-how. That's the important bit. That's the bit that should be emphasized. Physics know-how. I've underlined the TH just to remind you about the TH. Remember what I just said, tongue between the teeth. Often if someone knows about the TH rule and generally does it, if they drop it occasionally, then it will usually be when it appears within the middle of a word, like in words like either or neither, whether, father, or when the TH appears at the end of a word like with. So that's usually one that kind of just sneaks past, so be aware of that. So with a dose of, that's another weak one, with a dose of physics know-how, comma, to stack. Now you could do this strong, to stack, but again, naturally, I would make it weak when I'm speaking the full sentence. To stack a week, a pile of the multicolored. Now I've put a comma here. You wouldn't actually anyway because you're listing. But I definitely would take a break here because this is a bit of a mouthful. I struggled with this one, and when I first read it, I stumbled a few times. So really slow down and break it up. To stack a pile of the multicolored button-shaped chocolates. Now here, button. We have a week. I've highlighted the O here. It's pronounced as a schwa, which pronunciation students, you'll find the schwa is one of the first short vowels that I cover within the pronunciation course. Very important. What I find generally is the schwa is missed when students see an ON ending or an OR ending, like mirror. Most people say mirror or doctor, button, you might hear. So just remembering that ON or OR ending is, in most cases, a schwa. So give it that weak ending. Button. Now you'll also notice what I'm doing with the T's here. You can do it in two ways. Again, pronunciation students within the pronunciation course, further along in the course, you'll hear me talk about lateral plosives. Lateral plosives is this sound, tl, 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 or tln, tln, or puddle, dl, dl, dl. It's where you keep the tip of the tongue up on the alveolar ridge and sound explodes out of the side. Tl, tl. It's usually where you see a double T or a double D. Then often when there's an L following, you'll hear that sound. But here, obviously, no L. It's just double T-O-N. So we have button, 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 button. Actually, do I put it up in the nose? Button, button, button. Yeah. So what I'm doing there is I'm holding, like in a lateral plosive, I'm holding the tip of the tongue up and I'm not releasing the T. You can. There's no hard and fast rule about whether you should hold the tongue up or not. You can release that T. Button, button. It sounds lovely. Button. But it also sounds lovely to say button, 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 button. Okay? So that's your choice. For me, it's easier and it's faster to say button, button, but completely up to you. Okay, so button-shaped chocolates. 5 M&Ms high is how that sentence finishes. And again, I've highlighted all 3 of those words because this is the important bit. This is the record-breaking feat. It was 5 M&Ms high. Exciting. Goodness me. A very different COVID lockdown for this man than the COVID lockdown I experienced, which was just trying to survive with 2 young children, and he's there trying to stack M&Ms. But, you know, everyone had a different experience and that's fine. But 5 M&Ms high. Okay, let's try this whole sentence. He used all, sorry, let me do that again. He used all his architectural and design skills with a dose of physics know-how to stack a pile of the multicolored button-shaped chocolates 5 M&Ms high. Okay? Happy? Hopefully. Let me know if you've got any questions. Brilliant. Okay. Just a bit of chit chat going on in the student chat room. That's fine. And for those of you watching on YouTube and Facebook, please put your comments and your requests now into the chat because I'll be coming on to them very soon. And Letty is very helpfully collecting them all for me. So if you have any requests for particular pronunciations, put your request in now. And let's do this final sentence. Here we go. Many people might think that is a beatable record, but Mr. Cutbill challenged anybody to try and better his balancing accomplishment. In fact, I might put a comma there. I think that's what I naturally do. All right, so let's break this down. Let's work this through. Many people might. Now, I wouldn't normally drop this T, but here we've got a T into a TH, which is tricky. You'd have might think, might think, might think. That's a little bit of a mouthful, and it will sound unnatural if you make that much effort. So might think is absolutely fine. Just remember to get that TH out. Out. Get that TH out. Might think, might think. Many people might think, comma, that, again, TH, comma. Now, why have I put that on its own? This is because this particular sentence, for me, was very tricky to read. Here, if you break it up and put the weight on that, because that obviously is representing the world record, and it's important. So do separate that to help the flow and sense of this sentence. Many people might think that is a beatable record, comma. So obviously I've highlighted beatable record to emphasize, but, comma. Now again, I put but on its own. There's a reason for this. Usually, if you have discourse markers, particularly the word but or however, something that's really switching the sentence, then I would always have them emphasized. I'd make them stronger because it's important to really indicate to the listener that something's about to change, because they might suddenly be thinking about what they're going to have for dinner. They might have lost interest for a second. We all do it. Our mind just wanders off and we start thinking about other things, even if we don't mean to. It just happens. And so using a bit more stress on something like but or however, then it allows them to come back in time to hear what's about to change. Okay? But Mr. Cutbill challenged anybody, comma, let me make this bigger for you, challenged anybody to try and better. So this would have been and, but I've taken away the D because we've got a B there, and better his balancing accomplishment. So let's try this in full. Many people might think that is a beatable record, but Mr. Cutbill challenged anybody to try and better his balancing accomplishment. Okay. Do you think we can try and read the whole thing? Should we do it? Do it together. We'll use the broken down version so that we can remember all those notes. But let's try and do it together. I'll try and read it at a steady pace for you. And what I'd like you to do is to shadow. So there's a difference between shadowing and repeating. It's very similar, but to repeat is to listen, stop, repeat. To shadow is to try and repeat what you've heard as soon as you've heard it. So to copy the intonation, everything, the speed. Now, I like to recommend that you actually say it at the same time as me. It will be difficult during this live stream because I might say it slightly different each time. But for those of you who've got access to the community, you can download the audio. And the audio will be the same each time. So you can hear it a few times, get used to how I'm delivering it and my speed, and then shadow. So speak it at the same time as me, like laid over. Okay, let's do this together, guys. I'll leave a little space after each sentence for you to just have a moment to try it. There seems to be a record-breaking feat for just about everything these days. Who knew there was a world record for making the tallest stack of M&Ms? Well, there is, and the record has been broken. British civil engineer Will Cutbill, 23, attempted the balance-defying challenge while trying to stave off the boredom of being cooped up during a COVID lockdown. He used all his architectural and design skills with a dose of physics know-how to stack a pile of the multicolored button-shaped chocolates 5 M&Ms high. Many people might think that is a beatable record, but Mr. Cutbill challenged anybody to try and better his balancing accomplishment. All right, fantastic. Hopefully, you found that really useful. Right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to look at a couple of the requests that have come in from my students, first of all, and then I'll move on to take requests from those of you who have been watching on Facebook and YouTube. So I had a request from Mansour. Hello. You've asked me for the pronunciation of 2 words. We've got the word anxiety. Anxiety. This word has come up a lot recently, obviously, with the recent difficulties around the world. Lots of people have been very anxious. Now, anxiety, it has this nasal straight after the initial vowel, ang, ang. Now, there is a difference between the N sound, n, and this nasal sound. Both of them are represented within normal writing, within the normal alphabet, with an N. So it's confusing. And this is sometimes confused with students. In the word anxiety, we're using the sound, which is characterized with the back of the tongue high. That's the feature of this. The back of the tongue is high, the tip of the tongue is low. Now, this sound is usually seen in words that end with ing. So any ing or ng or nk will often be this sound. So you have walking or ping pong or sink. But often when you see an N that's not followed by a G or a K, then the tip of the tongue will go up like in. Different to So hopefully you've understood that difference. So here we use the back of the tongue version. Anxiety. And then we have this Z sound. So it's a vibrating voiced Z. Anxiety. Anxiety. Does that help? Hopefully. Anxiety. Then we have comprehensive. 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 4 syllables. Comprehensive. 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 Hopefully that helped. Okay, let me double check the chat room. Does anyone here have any additional pronunciation requests? Doesn't look. If you do, guys, if you're students watching live now in my ELAN chat room, please put a note in there now. If you're not a student, you're interested in becoming a student, then you can take a look at my website, which is very helpfully displayed here. Like I said, we have English courses all the way through. We will have English courses all the way through from beginner to advanced. And we have a pronunciation course, which is very comprehensive. And we also have a pronunciation assessment service. If you have no idea where to start or what to work on, we can help you with some personalized guidance on that. And there is also a business course coming very soon as well. So lots to look at there. So do go and check those out if you are interested. And we would definitely love to have you as part of the ELAN community. We're going to be doing lots of regular live streams as well, which will eventually be exclusive only to students. And we have a Telegram instant chat room for just general chit chat and finding language partners and friends. And yeah, it's a huge platform, which is hopefully very, very enticing for all of you. So do come along and we'll help you out as best we can. Okay, so Letty. So the question is, Thelma's thick thistles need therapy. How to pronounce the S with the TH? It's a bit tricky. I'd like to know how, please. Thelma's thick. Thelma's. So this is what I call tongue gymnastics. You have to work up the muscularity of the tongue. The tongue has to move from the alveolar ridge where it's making the S, and obviously your teeth are quite close together here. And then you have to push your tongue through to make the TH. Thelma's thick thistles need therapy. So it's just there, isn't it? Thick thistles need, yeah. So yes, it's just about getting that dexterity, muscularity within the tongue. And this can be achieved if you're really struggling with that. Slow, write down. Make those points, hit those positions. Thelma's. So really hit those points. Do it again and again and again and again. And then you can speed up. The thing is with tongue twisters, again, people think that they have to do it fast. You don't. Tongue twisters are about building accuracy within articulation. And doing tongue twisters at speed, when you're constantly tripping up, as much as it might seem like it's a good party trick, it might be impressive, it doesn't help. Doing something which includes mistakes over and over doesn't help you. You need to build a habit within your mouth. And so these positions should be hit. So take it really slowly and then increase the speed when you feel more confident, but don't think about going too fast. Just think about being accurate. That's more important here. All right. Yeah. Okay, Emmy. Hi, Emmy. You said I scream and ice cream. Intonation. Well, intonation will completely depend on how it sits within a sentence. But if you're trying to really differentiate the difference between I scream and ice cream, then it's just about how you separate those sounds, those words. So I scream. So I'd really, really push that sound onto the cream. I scream. Oh, I scream sometimes when I stub my toe. I scream. Ice cream. Ice. And then obviously with the delicious dessert that's full of calories, we're going to keep that s connected to the beginning. Ice cream, and a bit softer. Ice cream. You almost have that little hold as well. I scream, ice cream. Does that help? Does that help? I hope it does. Okay. So next, Mummy, hello. Could you pronounce first and world? So first, okay, so first is a tricky one because of the vowel. It's got a long sound in it, and this is tricky for a lot of people. The vowel is quite a lazy vowel, actually. You're not doing anything. Your tongue is very flat and relaxed. It's the long version of a schwa. First. We don't pronounce the R, and this is another little tripping point for people. They see the R and think we have to say first or something like that. We don't pronounce the R. The IR makes up the vowel sound. First. So if you can ignore that R, get that long, lazy vowel, then that'll be nice and easy for you. First. And then the word world. This is such a tricky one for so many students. I have spent so much time working this word for people. Again, this is the vowel. Ignore the R. Were. Sometimes people struggle because of the W in the beginning as well. W. Make sure your lips are rounded. Were. And they open up for the ER. Not the ER, the OR. Were. Then you have this tricky L, which is not easy, depending on where you come from, what your native language is, not easy for everyone. So the L is made with the tip of the tongue again up on the alveolar ridge. World. This is a dark L as well. So the back of the tongue is high as well. So it's quite a dark sound. World. There's a lot going on. That's why it's tricky. World. Hope that helps. How do you pronounce CH correctly at the end of a word? So if a CH is at the end of a word like touch. I couldn't think of a word then. Oh, on the spot. Touch. It's the same at the end of the word as it is at the beginning of a word. For example, let's take the word church. I'm not a religious person, but the word church is helpful because it has a CH at the beginning and the end. Church. See, there's no difference. With the CH, it's slightly plosive, so you have a slight explosion of sound, but it's also slightly fricative, so it's a continuous, vibrating friction sound. Okay, hope that helps. It's never a sh. It should be faster. And what else do people sometimes do with a CH? It doesn't come to me. There's a mistake that I hear regularly that I can't think of right now that my students make with this. But yeah, voiceless, church. Okay. I'll take 3 more questions and then I'm going to put an end to this live stream. I've heard the word garden in such a way that the den hardly sounds. Garden is probably what you're talking about. Garden. Garden. Yeah, that's kind of doing that. When I was talking earlier about a lateral plosive, it's kind of doing that. It's allowing the explosion of the sound rather than to come out the front, done. It's allowing the D to kind of explode in the mouth, dun, garden, or rather in the nasal cavity, garden. So it's like swallowing the explosion of the plosive. Garden. Can you pronounce the word aren't you? We have a CH sound within that, aren't you? You're going to the party, aren't you? You're going to the party, aren't you? You could also, aren't you? You could also drop the plosive altogether, aren't you? You're going, aren't you? I guess that would actually be more natural in free-flowing speech. You are doing that, aren't you? Aren't you? Yeah, aren't you? So you have this like y sound, like with yes, aren't you? And that comes through from the N. Aren't you? You are, aren't you? You're Anna, aren't you? You're watching this lesson, aren't you? Yeah, that would be much more relaxed, natural, conversational. Okay, last one by Fabio. Hi, Fabio. You said, is it possible to say months like Montis? Not quite sure what you mean, but months. Months is a difficult one, like the word sixth. It's a mouthful because you've got the TH into the S. This is, again, the tongue gymnastics that goes from one position to another quite quickly. Ths, 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 months, months, months. I'm trying to think if there's a cheat way of doing it, but months. I guess the only cheat you can do is to try and pull the tongue as far back as possible so it doesn't go too far through the teeth. Months. So it's almost touching the back of the teeth to make the TH. But it's helpful to just keep practicing that THS and the STH. That movement is very, very useful. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me here today. It's been very exciting to do my first live stream for my ELAN students. Remember that you can come and check out my courses and join my community via the website englishlikeanative.co.uk. I look forward to seeing you there. And for those of you who are students, I will do a debrief and share the link to the final video in the chat room. So I'll see you guys soon. Take care. Goodbye.